just need a second to make these little internet connections, and it looks like YouTube. All right.
Looks like we're getting going.
Instagram. Hold on, we're still waiting on YouTube. Still waiting. And we're live on YouTube and Instagram.
It's alive. So, welcome everybody to another episode. We're making a Turbo Pit Fighter comic. This is not Turbo right here, but this is right here. And already Curtis is starting with his scraping his mask off. So my name is Dick. Curtis on the right. I'm going to be penciling today. Looks like this, and I also have another page that I'm working on. We're making a science fiction comic called Turbo Pit Fighter. It is a post-apocalyptic love story, we like to say. But we're also building a world. And one of the first orders of business for Kurt and I, who meet every Sunday around 10 o'clock, live here on our YouTube channel. One of our first orders of business is discussing this Chromita 2-pager. So I finished. We were invited by Alex Turbin, who has been a guest here. He is the proprietor of Random Access Comics and Mutandis Comics, among other things. He has invited us to contribute a 2-pager to his upcoming zine called Funk, which is coming out soon. So I penciled up this kind of cool 2-pager about Chromita, the Shiba who built herself. And my question for Kurt, now that this is all done, is how to get it to you. Because I could pop this in the mail, but if I'm doing the old-fashioned way, because I don't have a large format scanner here. If I was to scan this, I would literally have to scan it in 3 jumps and then like stitch them together. You know that pain in the ass.
Yep.
And that's just for 1 page, so I'd have to do that twice here. As opposed to the other alternatives would be just shooting it on my camera, which is a very good camera at this point, the iPhone camera, and then just, sending you the best I can. It does distort a little bit around the, parallel lines around the corners and everything, but it's basically, complete and all there. High res too. So that's the second option. And the third option would be, so mailing it to you or just sending it to you digitally that way. Or the third option would be I could go get it scanned at the local Staples, because all you got to do is say, hey, can you make a copy of this? And you pay for 1 copy. And then you say, oh, by the way, can you stick the scan on this jump drive? And they usually do it for free. Then I could come home and send it to Kurt already all scanned. So those are your options. What do you prefer?
Yeah, I like to do the Kinko thing. I think that's just going to be a lot easier and safer. I just feel like having flat scans archive wise is better sooner than later. So even if you were to send this to me, I would still ask you to shoot a high res camera of it, because if something, God forbid, happens, in transit, then we still have a digital
record of it.
We'll be able to work from. But at this point, if you could swing by this week a Kinko's and do exactly what you just said, and then get home and then just we transfer those files to me, then we'll be up and going next Sunday. I can start actually laying in the inks.
All right. Assuming I can get to a Kinko's and get that scanned, get it on a jump drive. Oops, sorry about this, folks. And just shoot it over to you digitally. So that takes care of that question. Next, Where are you at on Turbo issue 1? You've done all your inking. You've done 100% of your black holding line inking and shading, and now you are adding gray tones in using a variety of innovative methods.
Yeah, I mean this point I'm on. This is page 14. We are getting 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 completed in order to have that a part of our third teaser, which is looking like an anthology. So this is one of the reasons we're getting Cremita together to get to Alex Turbin to have his, have that placed in his anthology. So, we can work from there.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a sideline for us to do the Cromita 2-pager. We try to at least do our steady amount of penciling every Sunday and inking so that the progress on Turbo issue 1 and 2 never kind of stalls. But I think last episode I was penciling some of that Cromita page. So, slight detour, but now I'm back to Turbo Pit Fighter number 2, page 22, and going from the roughs. Going from the blue line roughs to the blue line final, and now penciling it in. So if I'm using regular pencil over blue line pencil, I think it looks better on the YouTube podcast to be doing this because you could actually see what I'm drawing.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm here again at the part where Turbo is rescuing Sister Ray, and she's just about to have her death scene. I made her death scene kind of cool, I think, but it's mostly going to be on the next page. And this page, she's emptying the radioactive peas into this little basin on the altar. As the warrior nuns defend the rectory, Turbo's going to kick out the window and escape up to the catapult. I kind of explained all this last time, but now I'm here drawing it. But I'm on to the next page, which gets interesting. So this is the blue line roughs, but this is going to be where at the bottom here, she brings down the hammer, and she's going to be activating these radioactive peas to have a major nuclear fission reaction and blow the whole thing sky high. I get this is kind of a joke when it comes to real science because I think if Turbo would be anywhere on the periphery of that blast, she would be just melted. But in this story, she's just going to be on the edge of the blast, flying away as the explosion just kind of devastates miles and square miles, around the site. She'll just get off in time to avoid being incinerated. But if anybody's interested in what happens in the case of a real nuclear blast, check out the famous early manga entry called Barefoot Gen, and you can see one of the most famous Japanese manga ever. It's about the perspective of like a 10-year-old boy in Hiroshima, right? Yeah. So borrowing from a lot of
Turbo, not Dexter Jones, is he's just made a comment on YouTube. He does the same thing. He uses the old FedEx. So scan to getting the copy to a scan, and then he has that digital artifact for his pages. So
yeah,
just a clever idea, people. Clever idea. You don't have to have a $300 scanner sitting in your studio, but if you do need to get,
it's nice to have a FedEx account.
Going analog, staying analog.
Right. Well, yeah, I can't wait to see what you do with the inks on that 2-pager because
It'll be a challenge because I'm not that big a fan of Chrome in the
oh
sense in the sense that you have it very obsessively.
yeah, I'm
I'm getting a little nervous because I'm probably once I start working live, you're going to probably give me a lot of feedback and just some healthy heads up and what I'm supposed to do and not do. So it'll be a very insightful episode
mhm.
for anybody out there that wants to learn how to pencil and ink Chrome in comics.
Yes, that is a challenge that I really have taken on is to try to get a good technique, for Chrome because
Yeah,
I don't know,
it's tough.
Jack Kirby's Silver Surfer. It's like, well, he's just gonna draw those squiggles in there with that cool crow quill pen, when you get the set and it's got the
Yeah,
real flat one.
yeah,
um,
yeah.
and
And then
then
the inker's got to interpret that. That's that's a big, unless you're sitting next to somebody like I am with you,
yeah,
via the internet, and then being able to get like, well, I'm going to try this. Well, be careful of this. Then you are just making, seeing what'll stick, throwing up against the wall and see what'll stick.
right. Well, Jack Kirby, of course, is the master of just putting in black lines, just to make balance, and it's not nothing necessarily to do with actual shading or actual chrome reflection or anything. It's just, he had this quick style, and he's like, I need a a good interplay of black and white because that's called dynamism, and it doesn't. And he's like, why should I bother, like, getting the anatomy perfect and getting the realism perfect when this is just disposable comics? I have to do 3 issues a month. So he just said, I'm
And
just
you got
gonna
to pay the mortgage.
right. I'm just gonna like put black lines in the Silver Surfer's arms and legs and head and everything, and let the inker, if they want to, if they want to worry about it being realism versus being pop art. And so instead they just made pop art, which is just like, a quick representation of, black and white lines. But yeah, no, that I do a lot with chrome lettering, and I actually teach a lesson in it to my 7th graders, how to do like a basic chrome lettering. I mean, basically, when when the light bulb goes off, I'll show you here up close. When you're Where are those stupid pages? When you're making chrome, it's basically just a reflection, right? So you're saying, okay, here's a surface. If it's the Silver Surfer's bald head, it's just like the shape of a bowling ball. Imagine a mirror. So then what would you see reflected, right? Like, see here, in her chest, I was actually imagining that she's facing off with a bunch of attackers here. So I started to draw the reflection of these little bodies, like guys pointing guns and stuff, in the reflection. And that's the thing here. If you look at the lettering here for Chromita, if you just take like this middle part here where it's kind of dark, there's 2 rules that I teach. It's like, number 1, never touch the edges. There's always kind of like these white gaps going around, the outside and the inside of all the letters. So never touch the edges. And number 2, this is just a reflection of the ground or the land. It could be, the pavement, and a couple of cars and a bus, whatever. But you're basically just looking at a reflection. Now here's where I just do like kind of like Kirby stuff. Like, all right, let's just get, like a 50-50 ratio of black and white, and nothing really else matters. And that's kind of like artistic in a pop art way. But here I made it a little more realistic, I think, to just imagine what it would look like if the shiny robot chick was just standing up in front of, some some kids. So we have all the above going on, and I tell my students all the time. I said, if you want to be a good artist, you have to challenge yourself, and you have to pull up hard things to do, like pull up a book on Michelangelo and try to copy some of his hands. What I had the other day in my classroom was I pulled up a picture of. I got these like head poses. You ever seen those head poses where the lady is like facing forward, then she's facing to the side, then she's facing up, then she's facing down, then she's facing 3/4, and she's looking in every direction. And so the exercise then is to draw a face facing every direction, right? And I tell the kids, like, the Egyptians, they only drew faces like either frontal or profile for like 1,000 years, right? There was no such thing as 3/4, even though that's real life. And that's when art started to get more realistic, is like the Middle Ages. So the evolution, I tell them you can take 1,000-year evolution in art just by drawing something at an angle, at 3/4 angle. And so I'm not saying the kids take to the message and challenge themselves. I'm just saying I said it.
I was ready to say, I think everybody was thinking the same thing, like, oh yeah, sure, Mr. Jacobs.
Yes, Mr. Jacobs. I mean, I did have a kid.
Yes, Mr. Jacobs.
I had a kid bring a sketchbook up to me the other day, because I always say, I want to see what's in your sketchbook. And she was doing some really basic stuff. Like, she was like drawing hands that have like what do you call that, henna designs. She was drawing hands with henna designs. It was very cartoony, and I could tell that the student was not ready for the advanced stuff yet. So I gave her next steps. Yeah, I gave her next steps. I was like, I gave her some fashion sheets, which are just like blank bodies, which she can design some outfits on. And I said to trace this fashion body one time so that you have it in your sketchbook at a decent size, because she was just drawing too small. I was like, you gotta increase the size of your drawing. Use the paper. You're wasting the paper. But I teach middle school, so we get kids really young as 11, sometimes even 10. And then up to 14. So those are some real formative years there, especially if you're trying to learn how to draw. But I digest. So Kurt, we wanted to talk a little bit about that. We have that Chromita thing that we're moving on from that. That's going to be a cool little, I think, promo for the Chromita character. But Chromita is going to be a character in this world where there's not going to be too many characters. There's going to be Turbo, there's going to be Esoterra, Elevena, there's going to be Hellclaw, Chromita. There's not too many characters in this world, actually. The Duke is going to be one. But I was working on Chromita, just like kind of like thinking about her. That's what some of all these crazy notes are back here. So Chromita will be the robot that builds herself. We'll explain that. She'll also be kind of like the assistant to Esoterra. She's gifted to Esoterra, young Esoterra, when Esoterra is only like 18, because the unseen hand doesn't think Esoterra will be able to survive without a assistant, side person, wingman, whatever you want to call it. But because Esoterra will discover Hellclaw in one of her first adventures, she will need Chromita to babysit Hellclaw. So she'll be a 24/7 monitor of Hellclaw, and also a servant of Esoterra's prime directive, which is saving the kids who are who have potential for enhancement, and rescuing them before the bad guys get to them. And there'll be some episodes and issues and escapades around that. But yeah, Chromita will be I mean, I base her kind of like on Machine Man, I guess, or Jocasta visually. There was also Platinum in the Metal Men. But those are really just kind of like visuals. Her function will be more. I think we'll have to. I'll have to explain more about her function when we get there, like what kind of things she'll be doing. Because one of the biggest things that she'll be doing the whole time is just using her quantum computing power to process data. Right? I mean, if they get a DNA sample from somebody, then the computers have to process the DNA by scanning it in using quantum sensors. It's making sense. And then
Well, I think of her. I think of her as a living computer. So instead of having some computer stationary somewhere
right.
to be able to utilize, I think of Cremita as a character that's basically the computer coming to us, to the characters.
Yeah,
So
I was thinking about that. There should actually be some component of the computer power that is stationary that Esoterra is really just tapping into, because in the in she's body size, right? So let's say she's 6 foot tall, weighing, I don't know, like 200-300 pounds or something. Um, you need a lot more computing power. There's got to be some kind of like terminals where she's tapping into. So there could very well be a ground station, that's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. But what they're basically doing is they're going to be sequencing DNA to try to find these rare anomalous characteristics in human DNA before the bad guys can do it. Kind of like a space race to find candidates for enhancement. And Hellclaw will be a big find for Esoterra because she basically just comes forward. But they're trying to find, the next Hellclaw and the next Hellclaw, so that and it's a race. It's not only the Dehuberdins looking for them for their corporate military advantages, but also the Marauders are looking for them, and they're from Europe. And that this is going to be our first foray into other countries. The Marauders are a husband and wife team of professors slash medical doctors gone rogue because they found how to unlock some of the powers that Esoterra unlocked, and they're also trying to figure it out. But they know that finding these uh, child prodigies is the key to making rapid advancements, because Esoterra is very rare and Hellclaw is very rare, and it isn't until the next generation where Elevena comes along that they're going to be able to look at what makes these bodies tick and extract that so that you could duplicate it scientifically. If that makes sense. If we haven't lost you, so that's a little of the backstory. One cool thing though is this character. So I was suggesting to Kurt. I kind of like texted him yesterday like a madman. And I was like, Kurt, do you think we get maybe some suggestions? Maybe some of our listeners want to help. This is going to be a character like we're describing that has like 1 in a million DNA, and I'm not calling it DNA anymore. I'm calling it QDNA now, because it's like it's when we start to look at like the DNA on a quantum level, because they kind of like unlock the quantum universe and the sensors and everything and metrics for it. So when you do that, it's a whole different world, and that's what these computers are calculating, 24/7. So Esoteric is going to have people send in their DNA for screening, and so do the Dehuberdins, and so does everybody else. They all want a sample. Can we get a sample? And in the company, man, we the story that's posted for free on our Substack, Doomag Substack. You could read the chapters of the company, man. He was being asked to gather samples of everyday people when he was supposed to be fixing the water pipes in the area, right? And it was kind of like a data mining operation that the De Hubertons had him doing illegally, I might add. And so that's part of the company man story. But yeah, Esoteric found a sample and they had a hit, so they extracted this girl from France, where she's from, the small little village in France, in the Occitanie section of France. And I don't have any ideas too much about her, except that Esoteric will be a little bit older. So this will be, Esoteric was born in 2058. 2158. So this will be like somewhere around 2138 or something. I mean 2188 or something. And she'll find this young girl. She will equip her in this quantum cleaver suit. Right, you see how it has all these little things on it? This suit is going to be bejeweled with all of these rare elements, and they're all spaced out in a very particular way so that these particles can interact, because they discovered that you not only need somebody with great DNA potential, but you also need all of these elements rare elements in proximity. Right, these are like specially made like compounds to enhance the quantum interactions, the nanoparticles. And then she's going to create this cleaver. This will be something that she can just like swing and to create a pocket, that basically turns particles into waves and vice versa. Which, if you study quantum physics, that's the big kind of conundrum right now. Is when is a nanoparticle matter, and when is it energy? Because depending on how it's measured, it's very confusing right now for scientists and for the lay person to understand, including me. So I'm just making shit up. But I think the key to when humans do finally unlock the quantum kind of code, it's going to be, when is a particle a wave, and when is it a particle, and how is that controlled by nature and the universe, and versus how can we control it? Well, Esoteric has figured it out, and she created the quantum cleaver, and she's going to arm this young woman with it to try to safeguard humanity and be a protector and go find people, rescue people. But the first time she uses it, it's going to go terribly wrong, because there's going to be some kind of like super obsessed fan who runs up from the audience and runs right into the particle cleaver. And what happens is it misshapens his head so that it becomes like what happens if you take a head in Photoshop and just like stretch it out using the blur tool, except his head is like that permanently in real life. So they're going to think twice about using the quantum cleaver, and it's going to be a dangerous weapon, and that of course is going to make the bad guys want to have it even more, and so antics will ensue, as there will be a quest for the quantum cleaver, and the question of whether Esoteric should be creating these things because they could fall into the wrong hands and devastate humanity, blah blah blah. So, those kind of enduring questions. But I don't know what to call her, and I don't know what else to kind of like invent about her. So I'm open to ideas. She needs a name, and it could be French, or it could French sounding, or it could just be cool. I was naming all these other characters that Elevena will be enhancing in the future. So this will be about maybe like 30 years later. But Charvel will be the first one that's enhanced. Shadow, Pitch Blend, who the company man is based on. Claudra, I changed it from Quadra to Claudra because she's going to have she'll be kind of like a test tube baby from Hellclaw's DNA. And so she'll kind of be manufactured-ish. And then I had this other name I came up with, Chevron, because I love the shape of the chevron. And I think it's too bad that an oil company kind of took the name, and that it isn't a name for people because the chevron is a very important shape in nature and in geometrics. Anyway, those are the names, and you see they're here in pencil. I haven't really inked them yet. I don't know what they're doing here because this is all about Esoterra's protege. But these are going to be looking down the line, the Super Squadron. So if we could ever get like some FemForce type comics off the ground, those could all be characters. And I am making a cool graphic upstairs, little by little. That is going to have like a little box, well, like a little flood the zone thing, just like preview all these characters. And that reminds me of something I wanted to show you. So let's now remember how I told you I made an end of the year donation to archive.org.
Yeah.
Right. And when I did, they sent this little thank you email. Oh, thank you for your donation. I sent like $10 out of guilt because wow, I use the Wayback Machine all the time. Maybe I should, donate to this organization. So when you do, they send you this thank you email and they say, oh, don't forget to check out our cool archives of film, TV, radio, books, and everything. So I clicked the link, I looked at all the categories, and they have so much cool stuff that I have been sending Kurt a lot of the links. I've sent you like at least 3 or 4 by now, right? Of like, just like here's everything Richard Corbett ever did. Boom, it's all high-res digital. So I wanted to show you this, and I wanted to bring everybody's attention. If we've all never heard of a artist by the name of Emanuele Taglietti, because I found on the Internet Archive, I dug around so you don't have to, this incredible coffee table book called Sex and Horror, The Art of Emanuele Taglietti. And some of the stuff is not safe, but I'll show you. It just goes page after page after page. This is safe to show here. And, he looks like a movie poster guy. Here's some stuff that's not as safe. But he's got this great painted style. That's not safe. That's not exactly safe. Okay. And here, look, you can see, this is just perfect for pulp covers and this kind of, magazine cover style or book cover style, paperback, style. And look how great he is. This is a guy, obviously it's supposed to be Tom Selleck. It looks just like him. But it goes on and on and on. Now, some of the stuff is really like crazy, like, zombies and monsters and corpses, like dead bodies with knives sticking out. There's nuns. I'm looking at stuff. Trying to find the stuff I can show here. I can show this.
It's pure exploitation.
It is. It's the classic.
It's just literally it's just photo bashing in a lot of ways. Just one like image after another. And I do believe this was for a magazine, like a men's magazine in Europe, circulated out of Italy, I believe. Italy or
in the 80s.
And
in the 80s, yeah. And some of it is like bondage themed, some of it is torture themed, some of it is horror themed. There's a lot going on here. I mean, but the Europeans are a lot more racy than we are here. We still have this pure.
They got a couple of thousand years ahead of us.
Right. Right, like what the hell is going on? So I would just recommend anybody in the sound of my voice, if you want it, because this goes on and on. There's 150 pages in this book. Some of them are just text, but there's got to be like 100 photos here of these beautiful paintings, very realistic style. Here I can show this one. Very realistic style, very classic pulp, color vintage style, and this is what we need. We need more of, like, throwbacks, like movie, I want to do B-movie she-devils. I want to do a whole thing about this. And then here they have real small how it appeared on the cover of the, of the periodical. It was called La Poliziada El Libidinose. But so I'm just from time to time going to wow the audience with these little links. And one more time, if you just Google Emanuele Taglietti with archive.org in the search, you will find it, and you will see for free all this great stuff on archive.org that you probably never would have found otherwise. So that was a public service announcement for the day. I also wanted to bring up now, Kurt. When do you want to discuss the Bike Riders movie? Because I know you finally saw that.
Yeah, maybe I'd love to get to some of our polling questions. So, I had been thinking a lot about next year, way this year now, 2025, and also by looking back on, 2024, we're heading, I believe, March and or April is going to be our 3rd year anniversary doing this. Every Sunday, we get together. Now, I started about a year and a half ago some polling questions, and I'm running out of comic book based polling questions. I've enlisted ChatGPT, based on a comic book, the comics that influence podcast, or an interview, or just one of our get-togethers like this. But there's only so many questions you can kind of put in there without them becoming too esoteric, which doesn't mean that I haven't put those in there. But because we didn't have the amount of followers, I'm actually going to start re-inputting the polling questions for the ones coming. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting just to take a couple minutes and review a couple of them. I have the first 11 here. I grabbed them off of the community tab of YouTube, and maybe fluff up the questions or have another sidebar type of question, going from there. Because we started out with the question, the number one question I asked was, do you prefer black and white to full color comics? We had 5 votes, and 80% of them said black and white, and 20% said full color. So it's still a good question. I'd love to see at this point, a year and a half later, what is the census now. But we had some good replies or comments, I should say. You were actually, no, I was replying comments to it. Replies to the Kim Douglas has been one of the big contributors next to Dexter's Black Sand. So we always get some really good comments, and we get some, pittering back and forth, so, and I can't express enough joy in visiting once a day our community tab on our YouTube channel for Making Turbo Pit Fighter, and seeing what people are voting on, and also the comments. We do this because we want to build a community, and we thank all of you that are, participating, because that's really what it's all about. So, but the next question was, do you read manga? If so, list the ones that are your favorites in the comments. 0 votes on that one. One of the things I would say demographically about the people coming by and hanging out with us and checking our videos out, we are definitely attracting the right attention. I believe people, when they see the card, the image card for the video, and then the title, because we're always using the esoteric language of underground indie comic stuff, artists, Richard Corbin and, Jan Snod, that type of thing. We're really magnetically connecting, which is exactly what we wanted to do. And, we're not anti-manga. but we're definitely not at all that interested in what's going on out there in manga. We're really more interested in what our past has shared, with us, and how we're kind of reconnecting with, those things that inspired us. But I still think this is a good question because there are a lot of really good mangaka and, manga out there. And, there's nothing stopping anybody from cross pollinating, if you will.
Yeah, I
The
think
styles, especially younger, newer people getting into comics.
yeah, I think when I see those poll questions, it's sometimes it's frustrating because you want to participate, but you don't see your answer among the choices, so you have to really make a comment, to really explain yourself because
Yeah.
you bring up something like what do you prefer, black and white to color? Well, I don't think anybody would ever say like I don't ever want to see anything in color. It's there's pros and cons to both. What do you prefer to do? What do you prefer to make? What do you prefer to buy? But the world is going to always have both. So those are great, conversation starters, right? It's really a prompt.
Yeah.
Especially about manga. Maybe the question, maybe the next question we could refine would be, you know, what is it about manga that you don't like? What is it about manga that you do like? Because for me, it's an interesting look into another culture, the Japanese culture, and to see, the kind of themes that they have. One of which is like repeatability, right? How all manga falls into these very kind of like formulaic techniques, drawing techniques, and storytelling techniques. If you stop to analyze it, what makes manga so popular, there's a certain aesthetic to it, and then there's also this kind of like I think innocent, childlike, kind of part to it, right? Because when you look how just like simplified the drawings are, right? And the caricatures, of human. I mean, there's every level of realism to cartooning in manga, right? But when something's manga, it's manga, right? So that what makes it such, that those are the interesting questions for me.
Yeah, I know. Once again, it's really all about creating an engaging community. I mean, nowadays you need to have some kind of presence, social media, and out there talking. Whether you're running a podcast or just sharing your drawing and everything, it's a part of the artistic style and the promotional value of it. But I know there's a lot of people that follow us on our YouTube channel that are creatives. They might not be full time, they might not even be close to it, weekend warriors, if you will, but they definitely like having the opportunity to share their opinion and find like-minded people. So, third question: have you ever heard of the comic book artist Tim Vigil? If so, which of his comics are your favorites? 4 votes, and they all said 100% yes. And I think one person said Omen, and another person said Faust. I think you were actually the one that said Faust, and
EO,
who said Omen. But what, he's one of the core inspirations definitely for you and I, because we were able to actually meet him, and those guys from Rebel Studios back in the mid 90s. Yeah, it would be mid 90s and stuff.
well, you say me. I mean,
So
we were gushing fanboys, and I think I hired him to draw my character, one of my characters once, for like
yeah,
30 bucks. Yeah, that was cool. Um, but I mean, Tim Vigil is he's had a long career. He's one of the real good artists that talking about challenging yourself. He never shied away from like just like difficult, like mansions, castles, flora and fauna, like
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
beautiful. And you could see he was a throwback to guys like Frazetta and Barry Windsor Smith, because it was like making art that you could find in like a portfolio print set, right? That and the greatest like hands, right? And also like the greatest like leather, like gloves and like full length arm coverings and leg coverings, and some of his stuff really, really out there as far as like adult raunchy stuff,
Yeah.
violent. Maybe the worst example ever of like combining sex and violence in U.S. comics that you could point to.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
Which brings up like banned subjects and censorship and everything. I don't think he ever got caught up by name in all that stuff, but there are some comics that he's made. I think Faust and EO in
Oh
particular,
yeah.
where they
Yeah.
really like
Oh yeah.
there's a lot of shock value there. But
Yeah. Yeah.
great artist to talk about and to collect, because you know Tim Vigil starts out in with the brother there in the North Star Studios and the Rebel Studios, and some of those other indie creators where he wasn't as refined yet, and you could just see the evolution until he gets his own kind of like following and his own customer base, and then he just did whatever he want, and that's what he did. So, and then also
Yeah.
a lot of work for Avatar Comics later on, like a character
Mhm.
called 777. I know that. So yeah, I mean, I basically just collect Tim Vigil whenever I could find it. But there you go. And I think I have the full run of all those Fausts. I don't know what they're worth now. They got to be worth like at least a tenner a piece, right?
I would hope so. I would
Yeah.
hope so.
And I have some
Well,
signed.
last question.
Yeah.
Last question, and we'll keep coming back to this. Question four from a year and a half ago on our polling. Do you read superhero comics? If so, which one? Four people voted. 100% yes. Some of the comics that were listed was Savage Dragon, Radiant Black, Hulk, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then I believe it was Douglas said, "Is there such thing as too many from every company?" Ha ha ha. So, they're I do not share in the enthusiasm on any level, positive or negative, when it comes to superhero DCU and MCU. But completely respect those that are still out there fighting for these characters to not only exist or continually move on, but to get their own movies or animation or something of the like. So it's always great to get people's opinions, their viewpoints. And as I said, if you're on our Facebook Turbo Pit Fighter channel, hit the community tab. Also, if you got a little time you want to kill and you want to see the previous questions answered already or voted upon, or you want to vote upon them, they're not time sensitive, so you have the opportunity to be able to check out what's going on there and everything. So, but that's all I wanted to share on that. And it is a part of, like I said, looking forward to 2025. And the biggest news that we have coming out is that both Jake and I are going to be at the the Indie Comic Creator Con in March 15th, 2025, the Southern Connecticut State University. So this is just an amazing grouping, gathering of creators, and not only am I super excited about this, but I'm getting super nervous. So, and the nervousness is actually around whether I'm going to be able to get enough time to talk to so many people that we've been engaging over the last 2 years since we've been doing year and a half, I guess it would be, the Indie Creator Exchange interviews, which is over 30 something people, which a lot of these people are going to be there. Matt King, Adam Lemna, Eli Schwab, Cosmic Lion. There's John Perkett, Alex Turbin. I'm actually trying to wrangle people to come. So we're definitely getting ourselves closer and closer. And Jake and I will be there at one of the backroom tables. So and we will have something there to share and sell. So we're putting things together with that.
All right. Well, I don't know if you want me to go back and comment on the polling or the superheroes. You've covered a lot of ground there. Should I just move on to another segment here?
Yeah.
Okay. So one other thing I wanted to tell people about. Okay, well, this is going to be completely indulgent, but I found a great new band, and if you like all-girl punk metal bands, you'll love D Spitz from Austin, Texas, a 4-piece. I give them a high recommendation if you're into music like I am. Let's close that. They're kind of crazy, which is in a good way. All right, so Kurt, you know all the list of Mad Max clone movies we have to watch before we die.
Yeah.
I just checked one off the list, and boy howdy was this. Yes, boy howdy was this a bad one. I don't know how this gets made, honestly, but James Franco had a lot to do with it. He's like producer, director, main bad guy.
When did it come out?
2018, I think. Yeah, and it's so bad. Oh my god.
Well, what are you comparing it to? Are you comparing it to Fury Road or anything by George Miller, or are you comparing it to all of the schlock wannabes, imitators out there that we do respect them never reaching the George Miller thing, but they're definitely going to contribute to the whole making and being involved in post-apocalypse.
Yeah, so the first 2 minutes of these movies is always the best part, because it's always like the news stories and how society fell and there was a big nuclear holocaust, right? That's always in the first 2 minutes, right? When they do the explainer, right. And then they cut to a tumbleweed, whoosh, in the wasteland and everything. So this one was no different. And it's just a question of how badly were they imitating Mad Max and Road Warrior. You see these motorcycles buzzing. These guys are wearing masks. It's just such an obvious rip. What I found out talking to a friend, though, because I was like, "Did you ever see Future World?" I couldn't believe how bad it was, and my friend was like, "Oh, that's a remake." And so there is an original Future World out there that appears to be more like a Westworld kind of a story. Yeah, Peter Fonda, Blythe Danner, also starring Arthur Hill, who I don't know this, and Yul Brynner, where you can't tell the mortals from the machines, even when you look in the mirror. So James Franco's Future World featured this actress who is also a singer, and she was a robot that kind of betrayed her programming, because James Franco found her and programmed her to be his slave and to do bad things for him and everything. Here's a better shot of it, although this is kind of pixelated. So antics ensue. Mila Jovovich is pretty interesting role for her, because it's like a very like intense character study for her. But just the violence is so low budget. The motorcycles, they didn't do anything to the motorcycles. They're just like buzzing around. They're not like modified or chopped up or anything. And it fails on many fronts. But I'm still recommending the movie because
Good.
if you're just rolling down the list of bad Road Warrior clone movies, you just have to see them all and see how bad they are. Just don't go into it expecting too much. It also stars Snoop Dogg and I think one of the other rappers, Curtis Jackson or 50 Cent or Ludacris, I forget which is which, but they didn't have really major roles. It was also Lucy Liu, and so you're like, oh, this might have kind of
Wow.
like you're like, oh, this might have like a Quentin Tarantino feel to it, but it's just clearly not the best work of James Franco and Lucy Liu and people and Mila Jovovich and uh,
Paycheck.
yeah, paycheck.
Paycheck.
But this
Paycheck.
does bring up something to put onto the to-do list, and that is to see the original Future World. And I don't know when that comes out. That might be the late 70s, early 80s. But another tab we can close. Sci-fi. So I saw this, which was not a sci-fi movie, but this movie did have a lot of pop culture stuff to it. And it's a pretty good movie, worth seeing. It's Maxine with a triple X in the middle. And she goes from being like a porn star to being like a horror scream queen in the movie. And there's like this character evolution of her, but she gets tied up in this kind of like murder mystery, which kind of unwinds at the end in a very cool kind of B-movie way. So I would say there's a lot of great value to this movie. It's visually striking, pretty good acting, stars, budget, all that stuff. And some twists and turns at the ending that make it a lot more fun than the beginning and the middle. And just to clear my docket here on the movies, I also saw this one. This was a big budget, big budget sci-fi movie from the director of Rogue One, the creator. You probably saw the preview if you were out at the movies at any point. I don't know if you saw the actual movie, but it was the world. The first 5 minutes, the world blows up. The whole thing. There was a fight between the AI and the humans, and so this is in a far-flung future where the wars between the humans and the AI continues. And in this storyline, it's interesting because the U.S. outlawed AI and is eradicating AI all over the world. And the other countries, like in Asia, they're still embracing it, and they're using robots and these kind of like cyborg people, as part of society. Good movie. I would highly review it. It's well worth seeing. Lots of cool, high budget special effects. Pretty good story. Pretty decent acting. Just really good special effects. Lots of good futuristic stuff. So check out The Creator. And that is going to end my movie segment, meaning I'm all caught up. And the last thing that I want to plug is this, but I need to do this on my regular phone. Kurt, I'm pretty sure you knew this already, but for folks out there that might not know, are you aware that Image Comics is giving all of its digital first issues away for free?
Wow, that's pretty sad, but
So if you go to
their first issues away for free.
That's right.
Why? Are they going out of business?
I don't know how long it's been this way.
Comics going out of business? What's going on?
Well, we talk about take one to give one. And so what Image Comics has done, and look, this is alphabetical, starting from the numbers, going into the A's, going into the B's, and apparently this has every Image comic, I guess, after a certain date. Because I don't know if I don't think, like, all the original, like, Wildcats and Savage Dragons are in here. I don't think. But I think this is when they went to, like, the creator owned and they became more of like a distributor. What they do is you can click on any of these links. Look how complete this list is. I'm only in the G's now. And some of these comics we've gone over on our Comics That Influence, like even Kurt, look, this one, you showed me this Michelle guy, right? On the Copra.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michelle Fife. So you can get, here, I'm going to click on this. Are you over 18? Yes, I am. You can click and you can get the whole first issue for free. And if you want to see more, you got to buy, I guess that's when you got to buy the next issue. But look, the whole thing's here. And are the creators thrilled with this format? I don't know. But it definitely gets people to read the first issue. So, you can try before you buy. And, it goes all the way from the alphabets all the way down to the Z's. And I thought this is pretty, well, there's actually no Z's. I think the last alphabetical one is Witchblade. Here's vinyl, which we just came across last week in our Comics That Influence segment in the 10-pack. So, yeah, I don't know how you feel about that when you're, a big company. I mean, we spoke about like Scout Comics and, Vault Comics and some of these smaller producers that are really in competition with Image for this market segment. But I don't know. We're just going to run it by Kurt and see what Kurt feels. What do you think about? Because we just started offering our digital only PDF for our Turbo teasers, but those aren't really full comics anyway. What do you think about first issue free every single title for Image Comics?
Well, I think it's a good move, but I don't believe they're going to get the massive retention they're probably going for. The move is this, and Tom Chalimi actually talked about it, and he's one of the first people on my list to get back on the Indie Creator Exchange to kind of even talk about it more. No comic book store owner makes money off of floppies. He or she owns the comic book store, actually loses money on it. The whole reason, it's like Trader Joe's selling 19-cent bananas still. It's all based on getting people into the store and getting them the stuff that they want. So you are a prime location where you're going to get indie comics from your comic book store / Image Comics wants the same thing. The retention on it, I don't believe is going to be there because the competition for attention is astronomically out of chart. There's just not enough time free for somebody to do all the things that are really drawing people in. Video games. I mean, just, I've watched videos, when it comes to my marketing stuff, where statistically it grows that people, when they think to check how long they've been that day, doom scrolling Instagram or TikTok, the average is 2.5 hours a day.
Yeah.
Fucking gone.
Yeah.
That could be, you could actually be doing anything else. Pay for a video game, pay for a video to watch, pay for a comic book to read. But no, you are locked into something that has absorbed all of your attention free for that day. Now, some people are probably even thinking, what I'm thinking is, well, that 2.5 hours is probably during the 8 hours that they're supposed to be working, which is no good.
Right.
You have so many times you go into retail and stuff, and people are not engaged in their work. They don't want to be there. They're looking at their phones. You ask them a question, they don't take their eyes off the phone. They go, I don't know. But getting back to your question, it really is, I think, a shame that tactics have to be involved where you're hoping somebody is going to get reconnected through a free first issue to then buy. I don't think these issues are cheap. If you got like a 32 issue series, oh wow, this first issue was really good, but it's $3 a pop for each additional issue,
Yeah.
or $10 for the trade, and that might be, these are prices for online reading.
Right. You don't see Spawn. You don't see Spawn #1 here, right?
I bet you if you search, you'd find it.
No, I think these are the creator owned. I think this is like the later stuff. I'm searching right now. Yeah, it doesn't have Spawn.
Okay. But it's just a testament of time. I do also believe there is a huge corporate struggle to keep identifying with comic books as a viable income revenue. I think it's really getting more and more for these larger companies, no matter who you are. When I say larger companies, Scout, even Eli, if you're listening, he's heading in the direction of mass distribution through, what is it? What's the big distributor? I always forget their name.
Diamond.
Yeah, Diamond and
look, I might look.
Stuff. God bless. But the more you want to do something in distribution, the more it costs. Every time you want to distribute something, it costs more money. It doesn't get cheaper to keep advertising. The thing is that you definitely want to engage people that are the right people demographically, and B, be able to keep them engaged, not 2.5 hours on the doom scrolling on Instagram, but like a community, somewhere where you can come and hang out, or you could drift by and see what's going on, get a quick update, or drop a message, that type of thing. But, for a major corporation, everything from MCU, DCU down, it's not looking good. It's not looking good.
So I stand corrected. Spawn #1 absolutely is here in its entirety.
It's an Image comic. He's the biggest guy leading that whole thing.
Well, but then if they have Spawn #1, then they have to have like Wildcats #1 and Savage Dragon #1.
Well, I don't believe they're still under Image. I think some of those guys took that shit away. Savage Dragon, those guys.
Wildcats.
Rob Liefeld's not a part of that, so you're not going to get.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. This is not your Image comics from 1990s.
I guess it all depends, right? These are creator owned, and so they could take their stuff and walk away. And Spawn is still there, but some of these other ones are not. But I guess this conceivably does go back in time all the way to the beginning. Interesting. I don't know. So that's a little bit about the business end of things, but I don't know. I try to concentrate on the creator end.
I don't think we have anything to worry about because we're in the hi over here, check me out, which is once again going back to indie comic. I can't push this enough, and I am going to be pushing this more and more and more because I've been dreaming of something close to me like this. And the dream is really identifiable, that you walk into a place that's holding 1,500 to 2,000 people. Now, demographically, indie comics doesn't mean Turbo Pit Fighter or Crom the Barbarian. That's just a genre funnel part of it, but there's a greater chance that you and I, once people go, oh shit, that's the guys that do the Turbo Pit Fighter, and then they look down and they see the teaser we have or a sticker or whatever it is, there's a bigger connection there than just doom scrolling through your iPad or your phone and going, oh, that's cool. Like, that type. Oh, look, a video. Okay, next, that type of thing. And, repeatedly going to this show over years, you're going to be able to build a career. And so if you're a young creator, and when I mean by young, it's not your age, it's just how long you've been at it. Have you been doing this off and on for 70 years, but you only spent 2 hours a year doing it? Did you take 10 years off and you're trying to come back? Or are you just fresh out of high school or college or whatever it is? You lost your job and your dream is to become a comic book? Get to this show if you're on the East Coast, if it's accessible up the street, down the road, whatever it is, because you're going to be a part of something. And this is the type of thing that needs to not only happen, but also sustain it, to help sustain the art form that is comic books.
Right on. And you could lay out your wares and try and sell some stuff.
Or you just come by. Come by. You don't even have to have a booth. Yeah. You bring a bag. One of the things I'm already doing, I was just talking to Adam Lemno of Relic Hunter. By the way, bing, he's going to be there. Relic Hunter #2 is going into solicitation in February. This is one of my favorite comics of 2024. I can't wait for issue #2. He brought it up first, which was like, I just can't wait to start, contacting people ahead of time, to do some trading, and I was like, hell, man, count me in. I'll trade you some books for some books. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. That's something. Once again, it's going to be super exciting, to really be, my biggest dream. And I always make this comment about Sundays with you, Jake. I've gone to Jake's house and I'm on the living room floor and I got all my pencils and paper out. You got your pencils and we have comics out. And you're like, hey man, let me check out some of those Commander Kirby's, Jake. And let me see one of those Savage Swords, Kurt. And we're in it. You know what I mean? And that used to be what my childhood was. The majority of my childhood was, going to the comic book store, or the 7-Eleven, grabbing a bunch of books with my friends, and then going back to somebody's house, sitting on the living room floor, and then reading them and then throwing them to the next guy. That's not a changeable thing. That's not going away. It shouldn't go away. But to be able to go, and hang out with creators in that, there's going to be no cosplayers. There's not going to be any Pong or Pogs or whatever those stupid toys are. There's not going to be any superhero actors there. There's not going to be any of that crap,
Well, be careful what you say. Those freaking toys show up everywhere. I wouldn't be surprised.
Well. I'm just saying they're not booth weary. They're not a part of the attention. When you look at what IC3 is promoting, the agenda, it's Chris Anderson, Eli Schwab, and Cosmic Lion, John Burkett. I cannot wait to meet Ken Landgraf face to face. He's going to be there. And I've got a project I'm going to be sending to him tomorrow, and I'm hoping that he'll be able to pick it up and work on it. So I'll have pages either to pick up from him or, it's just, I am so excited about comics, and I'm not worried about MCU. I'm not worried about Image Comics. You can share it all you want, and I'm sure people out there, it's newsworthy, and it probably is something I should maybe sit down and cut some time out and get some of these free first issues, because that does seem like a really good deal. But for the most part, my focus as a creator and the art form that is comics that I'm immersed into right now, it's all indie all the time.
Yeah. Well, you only have one life, and you have to decide what you're going to do.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when I saw Milo Manara was working for Marvel, I said, well, when donkeys fly, it's what's the expression, when hell finally froze over.
That's such a great way of putting it.
But so you never say, like, maybe you never have a chance to work in Marvel DC. Would people would people do it even if they could? Right, a lot of creators have turned that down. That including people that we've spoken to, like, why didn't you just go work for Marvel and DC, right? But everybody's got to follow their creative path, including us.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if you ever went to a traditional convention and you waited on like a 2-hour line and just to show your fledgling portfolio to an editor, and then they shoot down your ego, then these indie exchanges, these indie creator cons are going to be a lot closer, for people getting published. I remember, when I first got published, Comic Zone, Brainstorm Comics, small indie guys like that give you your first shot, So it continues to this day. And we definitely encourage.
So we're definitely an hour and 15 minutes in. I used to say we like to keep these things bite-sized, but really and honestly, it was just because of the time it took me to edit and upload it. And also thinking, who's going to sit and watch an hour and a half of Jake and I talking about comics? But that's when I took advantage of Riverside's
live function.
It's a live function where I can put the streaming keys in, and now we're recording the episode, but we're also just doing the live stream. So, and it also attracts people. And then if you are coming back around, you didn't see the episode when we went live on a Sunday morning, a little bit after 10 o'clock this morning. Thank you. Thank you, because obviously we're saying something, we're connecting with you, and we do want to hear from you. I also want to plug, I am working on my second of 3 free scripts, comic scripts that will be released in a couple weeks for Crom the Barbarian, because I am working on the follow-up anthology to my Crom Collected, which came out in August of 2024, 140 pages of black and white sword and sorcery goodness. I already have about a dozen people that are involved in wanting to contribute, and we'll see what comes along that. So if you're on YouTube, go to Conan the Barbarian,
Crom
as
the
a
Barbarian.
search, and you will find Crom. Thank you. Going from there, but Jake is you're on 3. You have one more for the 3 free scripts. There's 6-8 pagers for people to contribute. So this year, I want to announce right out of the gate a lot of ability to be able to contribute to the worlds of Turbo Pit Fighter and Crom the Barbarian, and anthologies. And you had sent me something, I think last night, about inviting our good friend and colleague, Alex Turbin. I'll reach out to him and we'll get him on next week. But I also want to get some other cats out there that I'll talk to you about off air, and start scheduling them, because we have a lot of people that want to do the Indie Creator Exchange, and I'm super excited, and I don't want us overwhelmed. But I'll be this week starting to reach out to people to start setting up those interviews. So I told you, Jake, and I'm going to do my best. I sucked at it last year because I was just too excited to want to talk to everybody, but we're going to do 3 weeks on for interviews, 1 week off. So yeah. I'm going to really, really stick by that, and go from there. So,
good.
But other than that, Jake, I really do love hanging out with you and making Turbo Pit Fighter and contributing to this wonderful art form we call comic books.
Right, and for anybody that's hearing us on Instagram Live, you really should check this out on YouTube, because it's just a couple of clicks to get you over there, and then you can see the whole screen rather than just our little narrow portions that you're looking at. If you like, there's not too much to see as we show stuff, but I don't know. I'm using my phone, I'm using my iPad, and I'm drawing here. I did get some headway on this panel today. I just got to finish up the backgrounds. It's so funny how drawing small faces and small details takes me so much longer than drawing big, right? And you might just spend like a whole like half an hour just on one little panel because I don't know how many times I erased the eyes and the nose and the mouth. You know, drawing small is a real challenge. But yeah, I do want to promote the Substack for folks that want to get a weekly free installment of sci-fi writing. We have a bunch of different threads that are going on, and you can stay on top of it by getting them in your email inbox every week. But there's also the Doom Mag's Instagram now and the Doom Mag's Twitter. Here's a poll question where we put some artwork online, and we're asking for input if somebody wants to help name a character, that kind of thing. All things are possible. Check out the Substack and see what we're up to with the writing. Right now, we're talking about the rise of the pleasure bots and the interesting Shankara character, who will be also nicknamed the Unseen Hand, and she'll have a lot of effect on the characters in the timeline. So check that out to see how she will go undercover for decades to infiltrate the De Hubergen family and marry the CEO of the Pleasurebot company that's changing the world, changing the way that young men interact with their, with females for forevermore. It'll be different, leading to all-out gender war. All that kind of stuff is brewing if you subscribe to the Substack, and that will eventually make it into the pages of Doom Magazine's comics. So that's it. Check out our Indie Creator Exchange interviews on our channel. Check out our Comics That Influence on our channel, and see us right back here around 10 a.m. Eastern for the next episode of Making Turbo Pit Fighter Live on YouTube next Sunday. So, see you all in the front papers.
See you next Sunday, Jake.
See ya. How do we finish this out? We got bodies lying all over the place.